Welcome to Somali Nexus, the heartbeat of Somali heritage, culture, and untold stories, brought to life through conversation and curiosity. And today, we embark on a journey steeped in tradition, love, and identity. A journey through the sacred and vibrant world of Somali marriage customs. You see, in Somali culture, marriage is far more than a romantic union between two people. It is a profound alliance between families, between clans, and between generations. It's a ceremonial tapestry woven from centuries of inherited values, Islamic principles, and ancient rituals layered with symbolism, negotiation, celebration, and deep emotional resonance. From the very first whispers of Haasaawe, those tentative steps of courtship, to the grand celebration of Aroos, Somali weddings are an elegant dance of tradition and transformation. And guess what? It's not just about the wedding day. It's about what comes before, what binds families during, and what unfolds in the sacred days after. Today, we're taking you deep into this beautiful tradition, beginning with the respectful proposals led by elders, known as Doonasho and Soo Doonis, to the artful negotiations of Dadabgal, where terms of union are thoughtfully laid out, dowry, living arrangements, and more. We'll explore Yarad, the traditional bride wealth symbolizing honor and alliance, and the Islamic mahr, a sacred rite that ensures the bride's dignity and financial security. We'll uncover how each gift exchanged is a promise, not just between bride and groom, but between whole families. Then comes the beauty of Aroos. Picture this: dazzling attire, henna-adorned hands, the soulful beat of traditional drums, poetic blessings of Buranbur, and the rhythmic joy of Tanto and Jandayer. Somali weddings are a sensory masterpiece. Feasts of Barius Iskukaris, sweet halwo, and the warmth of community laughter echoing through the night. But it doesn't end there. There's Harrow fur, a symbolic ritual involving a beautifully tied wedding basket that's as playful as it is profound. And let's not forget Shaashsaar, where the bride is celebrated. Headscarves gifted in sisterhood, and her new status as a wife honored with joy and pride. These are not just traditions. They are affirmations of Somali identity, timeless yet ever-evolving. Across the globe, wherever Somali communities have taken root, from the rural countryside to bustling urban centers, these customs continue to adapt, blend, and thrive. They remind us that love, in Somali tradition, is not just an emotion. It's a social contract, a sacred duty, and a cultural legacy. So, grab a cup of Shah, settle in, and let's dive into the rich world of Somali weddings, past, present, and future, here on Somali Nexus, where stories find their roots and culture finds its voice. Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a marriage not just, joining two people, but weaving a whole new thread into this ancient, really vibrant fabric of an entire community.
Exactly. Forget the sort of swipe right culture for a minute. Today, we're diving deep into the world of Somali marriage customs. It's a system where tradition, faith, and family are not just present, they're absolutely central.
Yeah, it's a journey that seems to reveal so much about Somali identity and how relationships are built, how alliances form.
And how a new household gets supported by, well, way more than just the couple themselves.
We've been looking at a stack of sources that really illuminate these complex traditions, showing how they blend deep-rooted Islamic principles with even older cultural heritage. So, our mission in this deep dive to unravel this intricate process, from those first careful steps of courtship all the way through the unique post-wedding traditions.
We want to help you grasp the profound significance placed on this bond and maybe uncover some truly surprising insights along the way.
All right, so the journey to a Somali marriage isn't really a spontaneous thing.
Not at all. It's a carefully navigated path built on respect, negotiation, and, crucially, the wisdom and guidance of family elders.
The sources talk about these traditional courtship phases. You got Haasaawe.
Yeah, Haasaawe, that's more like a casual interaction, maybe within community settings or, you know, under watchful eyes. And that can evolve into Islamisho, which is a more serious phase where individuals get to know each other with the potential for something more. It's interaction, but definitely framed by the community.
That sounds like a process really designed to ensure compatibility goes beyond just the couple. It involves the families right from the start.
Absolutely. And while, individual choice plays a much larger role today, especially in cities and the diaspora,
Sure.
it seems that fundamental step, getting family approval, is still pretty much non negotiable.
So, if things progress and there's a potential match, how does the formal step happen? What's next?
Well, that's the phase known by names like Doonasho or So Doonasho.
Okay, Doonasho, so Doonasho.
This is when the groom's family, usually led by elders, makes a formal visit to the bride's family to state their intentions. The sources describe this initial meeting as often quite chill for a close family.
Right, just a first meeting.
Yeah, a chance to meet face to face. And if everyone feels good about it, maybe even set a date for the Mar, which is the Islamic marriage contract ceremony. It's like the formal opening of the door between the families.
And once that door is open, you move to what sounds like a really critical stage, the negotiation known as Dadabgal.
Oh, Dadabgal. Yes.
This isn't just talking about party favors, is it?
No, not at all. Dadabgal is where the elders, representing both sides, really get down to business. They discuss and negotiate the terms of the marriage in detail.
Okay, like what specifically?
This includes practical things like wedding costs, but also really significant exchanges of wealth and gifts, like the yard and the maher. Sometimes they even talk about living arrangements the elders experience. And frankly, their diplomacy are absolutely vital here. This negotiation really underlines that the marriage is fundamentally an alliance between two families, not just two individuals.
That focus on the families bringing things to the table? It brings us to the different kinds of wealth or gifts exchanged. The sources details several, and it can be a little confusing. Can you break down the difference, especially between Yarad and Maher? Who gets what and why does that matter?
Yeah, this distinction is really key to understanding the economic and social dimensions. So, Yared is the traditional bride wealth.
Okay, bride wealth.
This comes from the groom's family, but it goes to the bride's family.
To her family. Right.
Think of it as formalizing the alliance between the kin groups. It's a show of respect for the bride and her family, an acknowledgement of the value she brings. And historically, it often involved valuable assets like livestock, especially camels.
The camels.
But today it's usually money or other goods.
So Yarad is the alliance payment from groom's family to bride's family. Got it.
Exactly. Now, maher, also called nikah in Arabic, is completely different.
Okay,
This is the mandatory Islamic gift that the groom gives directly to the bride. It is her sole property,
just hers.
just hers. Its purpose is to provide her with financial security. She can decide what it is: money, gold, property, even livestock, or it can be negotiated for her. It can be paid up front or deferred, maybe promised. But it's hers alone, not for her family. The sources mention the Somali family code has sometimes set limits on it, though.
Okay, so Maher is the bride's Islamic right and security just for her. Other exchanges happening around the wedding time?
Yes, there can be other traditional gifts. Gabati were traditionally livestock given by the groom's family when the bride was formally handed over.
Livestock again.
And Sorio is money given by the groom's side to guests at the maher or nikah ceremony as a gesture of goodwill and hospitality. These smaller exchanges kind of reinforce the generosity and positive feeling around the whole union.
So once the negotiations are done, the Yard and Maher are agreed upon, the families are aligned, that basically seals the engagement that sets the stage for the main event.
Precisely. That agreement is the green light for the Aroos, the main wedding celebrations.
Which brings us to the wedding proper. This sounds like the vibrant culmination of all that careful groundwork.
It truly is. And at the heart of it all, the spiritual cornerstone that validates the marriage, Islamically, is the nikah ceremony.
The Nikah, how does that ceremony unfold?
Well, it's officiated by a religious leader, an imam or sheikh, and attended by close family and friends. The most significant moment is the formal agreement. The groom and the bride's mahram, her male guardian, often her father.
Her guardian.
They exchange consent and vows on behalf of the couple. Crucially, the bride's consent is sought and must be given.
That's essential.
Absolutely essential. There are witnesses, prayers, and recitations from the Quran to bless the union. Sometimes, following global trends, rings are exchanged, though that's less traditional. It's a deeply emotional and spiritual moment, solidifying the bond in the eyes of God and the community.
After the sacred vows comes the spectacle. The attire sounds like a key part of the celebration.
Oh, it's visually stunning. Traditionally, the bride might wear a guntino or a dira. These beautiful, often sheer flowing dresses worn over a gorgarad slip.
Wow.
She'll wear a garbasar, which is a head covering or shawl, and significant gold jewelry. Gold is very important. And intricate henna patterns called ilan on her hands and feet are almost mandatory.
But like many traditions globally, there are modern influences, right? Things change.
Absolutely. The sources note that many modern Somali brides incorporate Western white downs, sometimes fused with traditional elements. But a key piece often retained, even with Western dresses, is the shash.
The shash?
Yeah, a specific, often richly decorated traditional headscarf worn after the nikah. It really signifies her married status.
And for the groom, is it equally elaborate?
The groom might wear the traditional ma'awis, which is a sarong-like cloth wrapped around the waist, often with a shirt and a turban or a kofiad cap.
Okay.
Or the kamis, a long robe, potentially with a ceremonial bisht cloak, but similar to the bride. Modern grooms often opt for tailored Western suits, especially for the main reception party.
Beyond the ceremony and attire, what about the feasting? The sources really emphasize lavish hospitality.
Hospitality is just central to Somali culture, and weddings are the ultimate expression of it. The feast is abundant and delicious. Bardiyis iskukaris. That's a flavorful rice cooked with spices, raisins, and vegetables is a staple.
Sounds amazing.
Usually served with slow-cooked spiced meat, hilib ari, which is goat, or hilib load, which is beef. Sukar, fried diced meat, is also really popular.
And I'm guessing there are plenty of sweets. Can't have a celebration without sweets.
Oh yes, an array of sweets is essential. Halwo, a dense, chewy sort of confection, is a particular favorite for weddings. You'll also find gashato, which are coconut sweets, dolsho that covers cakes and biscuits, and lots of fresh fruit. Drinks range from traditional spiced tea and camel milk to juices and soft drinks. The sheer scale of the food is really a testament to the generosity of the families involved.
And you can't have a celebration like that without music, dance, and poetry.
Yeah,
What are the sounds and movements of a Somali wedding?
Somali culture has such a rich oral tradition, and weddings are just vibrant with expression. There's drumming and singing and distinct dances. Jane Dare is a lively men's dance with impressive leaps and stomps.
Energetic.
Very. The Honto has movements inspired by the rhythm of camels walking, and Buranbur is a more elegant dance typically performed by women.
And Burambur isn't just a dance, right? It's poetry too.
Correct? Buranbur is a significant form of poetry, often composed and recited by women at weddings. They'll share verses of congratulations, maybe advice for the couple or family stories.
That's lovely.
And then there's the gaff. That's a special evening gathering, kind of an informal performance session where close relatives and friends share poetry, riddles, and songs late into the night. It really strengthens those intimate bonds within the family circles.
It sounds like such a multifaceted celebration, blending solemnity with just exuberant joy. And all of this often culminates in the grand reception.
Yes, the Aroos, the main party, is often held in a hall. The sources describe the grand entrance. First, the bride with her entourage looking stunning, then later the groom arrives with his party. It's a lively event with more feasting, lots of dancing, speeches, and often includes elements borrowed from other cultures, like cutting a wedding cake.
So the wedding day itself is huge, but the traditions don't stop there. The sources talk about a significant post-wedding period focused on establishing the new life.
That's right. The period immediately after the wedding involves customs centered on bringing the couple into their new reality and integrating the bride into her husband's family structure. Part of this is the ceremonial escorting of the couple, part of what's called Hiro Iodakan, tradition and culture.
How is that traditionally done? The escorting.
Traditionally, the bride might be escorted to her new home by a procession of women with drumming and singing.
Quite the scene.
Definitely. While the groom was escorted separately by men, perhaps singing Islamic songs or praises. Today, this is often modernized into car convoys, sometimes quite elaborate with decorations and honking.
And then they set up their new home, known as a kalgal or gurigal.
Yes, traditionally, the groom's family might even provide the arrows, the actual house. Relatives, particularly female elders, play a crucial role in helping prepare the home, getting it ready for the couple.
A real community effort.
Totally. The bride's family also contributes significantly through Dabad. These are gifts of household items to help furnish the home, and the wider community often provides kalo contributions. Historically, maybe livestock, but now often money to help the new couple start out. It really highlights the collective responsibility the community feels. The sources even mention a specific dabar custom involving a tied basket from the bride's family, symbolizing the care she expects.
That community support is such a powerful theme woven throughout all of this. And there's a unique custom about the first few days after the wedding. Isn't there something about staying home?
Yes, it's customary for the couple to stay largely at home for the first 7 days. The bride is often supported by a bridesmaid or a close female relative who stays with her, helping her adjust. The groom also traditionally stays close by. This period is essentially their private time to bond, get used to living together without the immediate pressure of loads of social visits.
And within that first week, there's a particularly fascinating ritual mentioned, the Harrow or Harrow Fur. Can you explain what that involves? It sounded quite unusual.
Ah, the Harrow. This is a truly unique and symbolic ritual, especially strong in some northern Somali traditions. It centers around the Harrow, a beautifully decorated wooden container.
Okay, a contain.
Inside this container is mukmad, which is dried meat, traditionally dromedary preserved in ghee, sometimes with dates and spices mixed in.
Dried meat and ghee in a decorated box. That sounds specific. Who prepares it and what happens with it?
The harrow is prepared by the bride's mother, or sometimes her mother-in-law, and presented to the groom or his family. The harrow fur, which means opening of the harrow, is a ceremony often held around the seventh day. Okay, and here's the playful part. The groom, or sometimes a designated male relative, has to open it, but it's secured with really complex knots. The ceremony involves riddles, poetry, and singing, with the groom being challenged, often quite humorously, to untie the knots to access the contents.
Untying knots and solving riddles. To get to the dried beef, that's quite the test. What does that ritual signify? It seems like more than just a game.
Oh, it's packed with symbolism. Successfully opening the harrow isn't just about getting to the food. It represents the groom's ability to overcome challenges, his commitment to the marriage, and it strengthens the bond between the two families through this shared, often funny ritual. It symbolizes abundance and honors the bride's family for raising her well. The sources mention that financial contributions are often made when the harrow is finally opened too. It's a test, yes, but a celebratory one that really reinforces those family ties.
That ritual alone tells you so much about the values placed on cleverness, perseverance, and those crucial family bonds. Are there other celebrations around the 7-day mark?
Yes, that period is often marked by other celebrations, sometimes called Todobaba, which sort of means seven out. The bride might make her first visit back to her birth home, her natal family.
Ah, her first visit back.
Exactly. And there's often a party or gathering for close family and friends to continue celebrating the new union.
And there's another ceremony that's exclusively for women around this time, Shash something.
Yes, a very significant one called Shaashsaar, or placing of the Shaash scarf. This happens around 7 days after the wedding. It's a women-only gathering where female relatives and friends come together to honor the bride.
Honor her how?
They bring gifts, especially headscarves, the sheish scarves we mentioned earlier, and they take turns symbolically laying scarves on the bride's head.
What's the deeper meaning behind the Shaashsaar? Why the scarves?
It's deeply symbolic of the bride's transition. It signifies her new status as a married woman and her readiness for motherhood. Traditionally, wearing the shash was primarily for married women. So this ceremony is essentially a formal community acknowledgement and welcoming of her into this new phase of life, this new status. It's a powerful rite of passage led by the women in her life, her support network.
Finally, looking longer term, how does the bride integrate into her husband's family and clan structure? That seems like a big shift.
It is. Upon marriage, while a Somali woman always retains her own father's name and her clan identity, she becomes much more closely affiliated with her husband's clan. Her children will belong to his lineage. Societally, she's often seen as being somewhat absorbed into his clan structure.
Right.
The initial period involves adjusting, often living near his extended family. Like her mother-in-law and sisters-in-law, with whom she needs to develop important relationships, her influence within the household grows over time, particularly through managing the home and raising children. And critically, her own kinship group continues to be a source of support throughout her life, even as she integrates into the new family.
It's incredibly clear from all this that marriage is far more than just an event. It's deeply, deeply woven into the social fabric. What are the key social, cultural, and maybe religious functions these customs serve?
You've hit on a crucial point there. These customs serve several interconnected purposes that are fundamental to Somali society. First, and maybe foremost, they are about strengthening family and clan alliances.
The alliances, again,
In a society structured around clan identity, marriages are often strategic alliances between families and clans. The negotiations, the gift exchanges like the yard, the shared celebrations, all of this reinforces these kinship bonds, which historically and even today are vital for social support, resource sharing, and even political dynamics.
it also sounds like it significantly promotes community cohesion.
Absolutely. Weddings are major communal events, bringing together extended families, neighbors, friends to participate in rituals, share food, dance, recite poetry. It isn't just fun, though. It is that.
Right.
It reinforces social solidarity, shared values, and a collective identity. Especially in a culture with such a strong oral tradition, these shared experiences are foundational for keeping the community together.
And how do these traditions reflect or maybe reinforce traditional gender roles and social status?
Well, the customs do delineate traditional roles to some extent. Men often take the more public roles in the formal negotiations. In certain parts of the ceremonies, women are absolutely central to organizing the celebrations, the hospitality, the food, and leading specific rituals like the Shaashsaar. Marriage definitely elevates the status of both individuals and their families within the community. And while the traditional structure is certainly patriarchal, the sources do acknowledge the considerable influence women wield within the home and their key economic roles. And of course, these roles are evolving, particularly in the diaspora.
The sources also heavily emphasize the profound influence of Islam. It seems interwoven with everything.
Islam is undeniably a cornerstone. The Islamic marriage contract, the nikah, is the indispensable legal and spiritual foundation. There's no valid marriage without it. And the maher, the dowry for the bride, is her right, ordained by divine law, Islamic law primarily. The Shafi school in Somalia, along with the Somali family code, provides the framework for marriage, divorce, inheritance. Practices like polygyny, where a man can have up to 4 wives under specific conditions, are permissible within both Islamic tradition and Somali law, although how it's practiced varies.
But you mentioned this fascinating blend where Islam interacts with older, maybe pre-Islamic customs. That's where it gets really interesting, doesn't it?
It really is. This syncretism, this blending, shows how cultures aren't static. They weave new beliefs into existing traditions. While Islam is central today, you can still see echoes of older Cushitic beliefs.
Like what?
Well, the enduring importance of camels in dowry negotiations connects directly back to their historical economic and social value, predating Islam's arrival. Rituals around fertility may be linked symbolically to the wagar, a sacred tree, and older beliefs, perhaps even some symbolism in the Harrow container. It suggests older practices have been adapted or just coexist.
Fascinating.
The Satat tradition, which involves venerating female ancestors, is another example of this blending. It shows a living culture that integrates new faith without completely abandoning its ancient roots. It's quite dynamic.
That dynamic integration is really compelling. So while these core elements exist across the board, is the practice uniform across Somalia, or are there variations?
Oh, not at all uniform. The sources make it clear that while the fundamental principles are widespread, there are significant variations based on region, lifestyle, and definitely clan. There are differences between North South Central regions and between nomadic pastoralists, agro-pastoralists, and urban communities.
Can you give us a sense of some of those differences?
Certainly, that Debar wedding basket custom we mentioned earlier, that's specific to the South. Marriage costs, particularly the expected yard amount, can differ significantly. Historically, it might be higher among some pastoral clans where livestock was everything.
Right? Wealth was measured differently.
Exactly. Compared to, say, southern farming communities, rural areas might also rely more heavily on local religious figures for sorting out legal aspects rather than formal state courts.
And the clan system itself influences things beyond just alliances.
Definitely. The complex web of clans influences who can marry whom, what alliances are most sought after, and sometimes even specific customs observed only by certain clans or subclans. The Rahan Wayne clan group, for example, has traditionally practiced more endogamy, marrying within the group, and more monogamy compared to some other major clans. And the Benadiri, who are a distinct coastal community with a long, unique history, have their own specific customs, like something called male Fadhiisi, a women-only pre-wedding blessing, and unique ways of doing the guris, the escorting of the couple, sometimes even involving the bride being carried ceremonially.
Wow. The sources also touched briefly, maybe delicately, on interactions with minority groups.
Yes, they do know that historically, and sadly, even in some areas today, there can be social stigma and restrictions around marriage between individuals from majority clans and certain minority groups, like the Gabuye or Somali Bantu. It highlights the social stratification that exists within the society.
So these are clearly deep, complex traditions. How are they navigating the challenges of the modern world, especially with such a large global diaspora? That must add another layer of complexity.
It certainly does. The diaspora experience has brought adaptations and challenges. Absolutely. But also a really strong drive to preserve cultural identity. Somali communities abroad often use weddings as a key way to maintain their heritage. They work hard to preserve core elements like the Nikaya ceremony, the Shaashsaar, and that central role of family in approvals and negotiations.
So how are the customs adapted? What does that look like?
Well, there's often a simplification of some of the more elaborate traditional steps, maybe out of necessity or practicality. You see a lot of creative blending. Traditional attire worn alongside Western styles, maybe for different parts of the event.
Like the shash with the white dress.
Exactly, that kind of thing. Weddings might take place in modern venues like large banquet halls alongside the essential mosque ceremonies, and they incorporate new elements like professional features, photography, video, sometimes fancy cars like limousines. But practices like the Harrow, or at least the spirit of community support it represents, often continue, just adapted to the diaspora context, maybe with financial contributions instead of dried meat.
What are some of the difficulties or tensions that arise with these changes? It can't all be smooth blending.
Number the sources point to several challenges. Cost is a major one. Diaspora weddings can become incredibly expensive, which leads to a lot of discussion within the community about the need for moderation.
I can imagine.
Sadly, issues like child and forced marriage remain concerns. In some contexts, often linked to complex factors like poverty, ongoing conflict back home, or sometimes misinterpretations of religious or customary duties. And then there are significant generational differences. Young Somalis raised outside Somalia might have very different perspectives on things like arranged marriage, gender roles, or even how important certain rituals are compared to their parents' generation.
That tension between holding on to heritage and adapting to new norms must be a constant balancing act.
It absolutely is. And it leads to evolving perspectives. There's often a greater emphasis now on individual choice in selecting a spouse, even if family approval remains key. Gender roles are certainly changing and being debated, especially for women in the diaspora who are often taking on significant economic and leadership roles. Practices like polygamy are also subject to ongoing contemporary debate and discussion within the community.
So, reflecting on everything we've covered, what does all of this tell us about Somali marriage fundamentally?
I think what stands out most is that Somali marriage is this profound, incredibly complex institution. It's really not just about the union of two people. It's a dynamic interplay between individuals, their immediate families, their wider clans, the entire community, and their deep faith. It's a process that builds alliances, reinforces social bonds, and establishes new households with layers upon layers of traditional and religious significance.
And it's not a relic of the past locked in amber, but a living tradition.
Precisely. It's a vibrant tapestry that continues to adapt, weaving in modern threads while working hard to preserve the core patterns of its ancient heritage wherever Somali people build their lives around the world.
That was an incredible deep dive into such a complex and beautiful tradition to leave you, our listeners, with a thought building on what we discussed. We saw how the sources highlight that fascinating blend of ancient, maybe pre-Islamic customs with Islamic practices. What does this syncretism, this layering, tell you about how cultures evolve and weave new beliefs into existing traditions?
Or maybe consider the balance between preserving tradition and adapting to new norms that we explored. How do you see this tension playing out in cultural practices you are familiar with, perhaps in your own background or community?
Definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Somali marriage customs.